Greeting you, YouTube. The dangerous rise of COVID-19 influencers and the armchair epidemiologists. I find myself increasingly obsessed with the rise of the so-called COVID influencer or armchair epidemiologist. These men, and they are largely men, are legitimate experts in other fields. They are lawyers, former reporters, and thriller writers, Silicon Valley technologists, newspaper columnists, economists, and doctors who specialize in different parts of medicine. Their utter belief in their own cognitive abilities gives them the false sense that their perspective and predictive powers are more informed than the rest of ours. Now, this is not a new concept to me, and over the years, I've come to refer to this particular mental framework as engineer's disease because I first encountered it, and I see it most often from engineers, from people in the technical fields of one variety or another, and in science. And that is that somebody becomes an expert in a field. It could be any field. And over time, they become convinced that their expertise in one field, legitimate expertise, means that they actually have an insight into a lot of other disciplines. And occasionally, there are tangentially linked speculation and specializations that do have an overlap. So the more they have this creeping sense that I know a whole lot about a lot of things, it gets worse. And over time, they've convinced themselves that they know a whole lot about everything. Now, I'm a specialist in the sense that I'm a generalist. I make a point to know a whole lot of topics to a very shallow depth. There are a few topics I know a lot about, but not everything. I want to know a whole lot about everything, but can't. So I know a little bit about everything, but I admit this. And I freely admit when I say, I know enough to call bull on that, but I can't necessarily tell you why. So I then turn to an expert. I am not convinced that I'm a specialist in everything, because I'm not. I'm just good at smelling bull when I see it. So I'm really good at smelling bull when it's being spewed by people suffering from engineer's disease. But right now, in the midst of a pandemic, people who are doing this, the armchair epidemiologists, they're killing people because some folks are listening to them. They're convinced, well, I like this person for X, Y, or Z, and I trust their word on their specialization because, again, they are legitimately experts in that field. Then maybe I should listen to their view about something completely unrelated. But you're going to have to really convince me that someone has knowledge before I can take their word as gospel. Now, you can show me that they have a degree in the topic. Okay, that's going to convince me more. You can show me their past discussions of that topic. Okay, that's going to convince me some more. But it's going to take a bit. And occasionally I am surprised. Occasionally I'll encounter somebody who I thought was, an expert in X, and then find out, hey, they're also really, really knowledgeable about Y and Z, legitimately. Cool. Knowledge is great. And one of the things I've encountered is that when folks do legitimately have some knowledge of things outside their field, they're almost always like me in the sense that they freely admit they don't know everything. They freely admit their own ignorance because they're smart. Because they know they don't have the depth in that particular field that a true expert has. And that gives me greater respect for them. Because they're admitting the fact that their knowledge is limited, but they'll share what they've got. And that's the best kind of sharing of knowledge. You're sharing what you have, and you're not claiming more than you've got. Folks like this in the article, they're doing the latter. They're sharing what they have, and they're claiming they got more than they've got. And right now, that's really damn dangerous. Not that it isn't damn dangerous in other fields as well. We've seen economists do this all the time because they're shaman, and they want as much attention and power as possible. And sometimes their economic policies will convince cities and nations to do things which just harm those with the least power to do anything about it. And that gets people killed in a different way. But right now, it's much more direct and visceral. People are catching a disease and dying because they're following the experts' advice because they trust the experts, even though these people are, in fact, not experts. They've just convinced people they are. These people are peddling snake oil. Now, it may be snake oil they sincerely believe in, but it's still snake oil. And it's getting people sick. It's getting people killed. COVID-19 is not a conspiracy. It was not developed in a lab somewhere. It's a disease. It's a virus. We encounter them from time to time. I saw something not long ago where someone was making the claim that, well, we survived the Black Death without vaccines. Yes, we did. And a third of Europe died. Is that your goal? Would you like a third of the United States of America to die? Would you like 100 million people to die? Because that would be the equivalent of the Black Death. And I don't think we'd bounce back from that real quick if a third of America died. As it is, we're having thousands of people die on a regular basis. 1,000 or more a day are dying in the United States right now. That's an atrocity. In a nation that should be able to pivot quickly and efficiently if it weren't for folks muddying the water by pretending to be experts when they aren't. So don't suffer from other people's engineer's disease. Look at their credentials and see if they actually know what they're talking about. Don't believe them just because they're famous, because that is a really bad metric to base your life's risks on.